Hello and welcome to the League One Lowdown on the Deck Network. I'm Callum. I'm joined by Sam as usual. How are we, Sam?
Oh yeah, I'm very happy Orient are playing this week, so I don't have to talk about them, and we can gloss over everything at the moment, and I don't have to talk about them.
That's interesting. I'm sure we'll probably find a way to end up talking about that at some point. So we'll go over a few of your questions that you've left us and talk a bit about the international break as well. Not too happy about that on both sides, but there is still some football as well. 3 games to look at as well. We'll get on to that in the second part of this podcast. But Sam, the predictions from last week, it's fair to say neither of us did too well on that one. But once again, your approach and your tactics on these need a bit of fine tuning because you lost again. Do you want to go over the results for us?
So I got 4 correct outcomes, which is actually between us. We've done really, really badly this week. Hopefully, it's hopefully our worst performance of the season. So I got 4 correct outcomes with Lincoln, Stevenage, Bristol Rovers, Cambridge, Barnsley, Crawley, and Birmingham versus Wigan. Callum somehow. Mr. Auraman himself has got another 2 correct scores with Bristol Rovers and Cambridge and Blackpool versus Wickham having correct outcomes in Barnsley, Crawley, and Lincoln Stevenage. So the scores on the doors after last week were I had 13 and Callum had 22. And after this week, it's now I've got 17 and Callum, you are now on 30. So you've taken a pretty steep lead in these early stages. Maybe I should just take your approach of Uranus and just guess.
Just not doing your data research and just going into it and having a what's it called? Just having a proper guess at it and I don't know, just properly guessing. We'll get into some questions then. If you've got any questions, head over to @League1Lowdown on Twitter or X. I feel like everyone still calls it Twitter.
Yes.
It's over on there. The first one kind of touches on some news that we had earlier this week. Weirdly, after all the matches had finished on Tuesday night, it was Steve Bruce appointed at Blackpool. A question, an appointment that has left a lot of people just being a bit like, why? Namely, this fan who tweeted, "Fans who Blackpool Steve Bruce fans, why Steve Bruce? Blackpool Steve Bruce fans, how Bruce?" Any logic to this on your side, Sam?
Yeah, I kind of agree with the other 2 fans who tweeted in. What are Blackpool thinking? And Steve Bruce, why? It's not really to give it. So they've given him a 2-year contract. He's now, how old is he? He's been around years, and he's about 63 years old now. He most recently managed. Oh, he's been here, there, and everywhere, Steve Bruce, isn't he? So
Yeah,
I think based on when he was at Aston Villa, I class that as a failure. He had people like John Terry, he had Tammy Abraham, and he failed to get that team out of the Championship. His tactics, if you're more of a modern fan, you probably would call him a dinosaur. It's a bit more Route 1 football, which is not sort of the way Blackpool have been recognised over recent years. Last manager I remember that Blackpool had that was this direct is probably a Gary Bowyer. So Blackpool obviously are renowned for playing quite attacking football, and Steve Bruce isn't that kind of manager. I'd call it quite a rogue appointment, and it comes with quite a lot of risk considering he's now also not managed for 2 years. So, and he's never ever managed in League One, which is also another risk because as much as the Championship is the most competitive league, I think personally, it's a different kettle of fish in League One. You've got teams with budgets half or even a quarter of the size of budgets playing each other, and anyone can still beat anyone on any given day. So, and he can't have come cheap. There's no way that Steve Bruce would have come cheap because he's called Steve Bruce as well. I was surprised that they didn't go for a more young, progressive manager. To be fair to Richard Keogh, he didn't do a bad job. Obviously, the 4-4 Cambridge.
He didn't do a good job either.
I think they could have done better appointments than Steve Bruce. Obviously, they've kept Richard Keogh and promoted Stephen Dobbie from the youth system. But he's now got 10 days to work with that Blackpool team to install his ideas. I don't think we're going to be seeing Blackpool topping any sort of scoring now, but they're third in expected goals at the moment, Blackpool. I'd expect that expected goals against to become a lot lower under a manager like Steve Bruce. Obviously, the players may look up to him because of his playing reputation as well. And he does have a decent reputation as a manager, but it's not a recently good reputation, if that makes sense. So the jury is out for me, I think.
I mean, you have to look. I have to be careful when you look at this because you've got a manager such as Guardiola who, let's be honest, he's been in football for ages, and by no means comparing Steve Bruce to Guardiola. We'll get to the point that I'm trying to make in a minute. But when you look at when a manager was first into football and at the end of their playing days, I don't want to say you stop learning as a manager, but your philosophies are very well implemented. You don't change how you coach roughly after 5 years as a manager, 5-10 years as a manager, right? And since he's been at Sunderland, Hull City, and Aston Villa, his playing styles across all of those clubs are broadly the same, right? And now he's at Blackpool. I just don't like. Has football moved? I don't want to say has football moved past Steve Bruce because I don't think Steve Bruce was ever football, but I mean, by no means, disrespecting him. He's a great player for Man United in the past, and he's a great manager at some of the clubs that he's managed. He's a good figure. He's a well known figure, and you manage at that level for that length of time for a reason. But he has never lasted. Well, I don't. He's lasted, I think, an average of nearly just over 1.5 years every single time he's managed a club. So even him coming in like at the start of this year, give him this year to kind of like settle the ship, and then next year to go for it, he's already exceeded his average term as a coach. So I don't know. Interesting appointment, but Blackpool fans, what did make me chuckle was seeing all the I'm sorry Blackpool fans on social media, or prayers for Blackpool fans and whatnot. I think that was did think that was quite funny. We'll get back to the next question, actually, because I think that's probably a longer discussion. Quickly, we'll head to Birmingham. Have Birmingham got to win the league now? Sam, I think if you remember back to the deadline day live stream that we did in collaboration with the other podcasts, I made it very clear that if they don't win the league, it's a failure of. It's a failure. Like it just is a failure. So, what are your thoughts?
I think Alfie May come out and said that as well, didn't he? He said it would be classified as a failure. It'd be interesting to see what sort of reception Steve Bruce, speaking of Birmingham and Steve Bruce, gets, because he was there for 6 years, which is the longest spell. And obviously, I don't remember it. I think he won. I don't know if it was Alex McLeish or him. They won a Carabao Cup.
The Carabao Cup. I think that was Alex McLeish. Yeah, it was 2011 off the top of my head.
But yes, I do agree that it's a failure if they don't win the league this year. I mean, they've spent. I know we go on about how much they've spent, and it's 30 to 40 million, and a lot of us are jealous, including me. They have generated that money, but the squad is arguably the best squad we've ever seen in League One. You've got players who the squad Birmingham have is better than most bottom half Championship squads, I personally think.
Yeah.
You've now got a front two of Jay Stansfield and Alfie May. You've got Scott Wright, who was playing for arguably the biggest club in Scotland in Rangers. You've got Gardner Hickman, who was playing in the Championship for Bristol City last year. You've got Peacock Fowler, who's a Northern Irish international. And that's just naming 3 or 4. You've got Ethan Laird, who, in my opinion, is a very, very good Championship fullback. You've got Alex Cochrane, who played or got Hearts into Europe this year. It's just Ben Davis as well, another one from Rangers. Was that Liverpool? It's just, you look at it and it's like, I think every single one of their players in their probably 18-man squad have been near enough getting to every League One team. Let's put it that way.
I think it's It is a failure if they don't win the league. The same person also said that Exeter appeared to be quite worried about the tax in their statement. Obviously, they'll get a proportion of the J Stansfield transfer due to all these silly transfer contract things that are really doing my head in. What happened to just having a simple fee? Could it bugger them? They say. I've read this statement. I was a bit confused as to why they felt the need to put it in their statement. It just almost felt like they were bulking it out, and it's ended up worrying a lot of people for no reason. But your thoughts on that, Sam? I think it's just purely they don't want to pay tax purely because they don't want to pay the tax on the money that
Yeah,
they don't want to pay tax for the future. They want to pay tax
when it
over
comes
time.
in.
I think that's
Yeah,
what
I think
they're
that's
trying to
probably
say.
fair as well because they don't. I know they've got to put it as expected income, but they don't see the income, so it's not overly fair that they pay tax on. Let's say I think the sell-on fee was around 20%, so they'd have got let's say 2 to 3 million quid. Let's say they get that ballpark figure. If you're putting that in your expected accounts, that for a couple of clubs in League One is your losses for the year, so that becomes equal. And if you're having to pay tax on £2 million, because Exeter are obviously a fan-run club, so their losses are very, very minute anyway. And you stick that in the mix, their tax bill will be quite high if they have to put a 2 million expected income in. Which I don't think is overly fair, but I'm
They
unfortunately not an
basically,
accountant.
I'm not an accountant, but I think it's fair. I think that's probably, I don't want to say a loophole that needs to be closed. I think like I don't want to get into politics here, but it does seem a bit weird that you're paying tax on money you don't have effectively. But anyway, that I'm sure the people of Exeter who are running the club know more about the finances of that club than we could ever speculate about. Talking about people who know more about certain situations. Sam, you're an Orient fan. You've made it quite well known. The next question: Will Wellens make October? Give me one word. Give me one word. Will he make October?
Yes.
Do you think? Go on. No, I've said give me one word. Now explain.
So he has just signed a 3-year deal. There is no way in hell, I personally don't think, if we had no money to spend in the summer, which is why we've got 6 loanees in, with 2 of them being goalkeepers, we can afford to terminate his 3-year contract. I still think he'll be in demand. We've got an incredibly difficult September. We've got Wrexham in there. We've got Peterborough. We've got Stockport. We've got Reading. And we've got Brentford in the Cup. There's probably another one I'm missing. But I personally don't think there is a chance we don't win until October. But I don't think he'll be sacked because our board know what they've got with Wellens in terms of, and I think his past reputation will give him more time. We know he can get the best out of every player in the squad. We were slow starters last year, and this time last year, we only had 1 point. And our start was, let's say, easier last year. This year, we've arguably played the 3 best teams in the league, not as what the table suggests, but in my head, in our predictions, for example, we've played our top 3. So we look at that. Yes, the Shrewsbury game was terrible, and he's freely admitted that was terrible. But we come back after last year's international break and we're a lot better. So I'm hoping that happens. But I personally just don't think we can afford to break his 3-year contract. And realistically, is there anyone out there that's going to get more out of the players than he does as well?
I think in a way, if this form doesn't improve, I mean, we're only 4 games into the season, so I don't think it's room to panic. I think 10 games is when you have to start going alarm bells. But I think in a way, you've kind of been, if this form does continue, you'll look back on this Blackpool manager and you'll kind of wish, okay, maybe this would have been the perfect opportunity for a change of manager. You'd have gone, Blackpool can get the manager that's not working with our squad, paid the money that we're now having to pay to sack him, and then getting a new coach. So, it could be a bit of a curse in disguise, this whole Blackpool going for Steve Bruce for Orient in a roundabout way. I don't know whether it will come to that and whatnot. And Orient, obviously, we know they've had the troubles in the past and whatnot. So it's one of them. You never like to see a club like Orient, who have been through a lot, get relegated. But what it will do is it will make me laugh a lot, and it will probably increase the enjoyment of this podcast. So swings and roundabouts. The next question that we've had in: what do you reckon to the Sky Sports Plus coverage so far? This person says they hate it, strong word, but I have to admit it's nice to be able to watch other teams. Now, I watch it through. Whenever I get the small chance to watch it, I'll admit I've only watched 2 games on it so far because I'm normally working during games. I've had the sound off because I've been working, and I've barely watched it. And I watch it through the Now TV app, not necessarily the actual Sky Sports app or whatnot. So I don't tend to have a full experience on it. So I can't give a full review. But what I will say is that, I mean, the camera angles seem to be all right. So that's all I can offer on this one.
So I've watched, I think, 4 or 5, and whenever there's like a midweek game, I agree with whoever put this comment in terms of it's nice to be able to watch other teams. Like I watched Salford versus McDonald's on Monday. So it is nice in that regard. Like you say, the camera angles are perfectly fine. I don't think the coverage in terms of the picture is too bad. That's fine. My biggest problem with it is, number one, the commentators. They're terrible. Unless you get like a regular commentator, they are really poor. And that, like the commentator we had on last night's game, they didn't know some of the players' names, so they were describing what colour boots they had on. So it's like, here's the Orient player in the blue boots. Here's the Orient player in the yellow boots. It's like, come on.
Well, that's helpful. Give us
the
name.
I'm hoping that they can try and take the commentary. I don't know how this would work. Like for Orient Live, for example, we've got someone called Dave Victor who does it, who works for BBC.
Yeah.
Maybe try and get the commentary from that on. I think that would improve the experience, just having a commentator who actually knows.
But then it comes to having like the neutrality. Like if you've got Sky Sports, you don't want to have at Radio Lincolnshire, like the commentators. I'm not going to say they're focused on Lincoln City, but they'll talk about the Lincoln City players during a break of play. They won't necessarily talk about the opposition. But I get your point. You want commentators who know what they're doing, not who are just starting off. I get what you mean.
But like I can't remember what game. There was another game I watched on it. The commentator was quite good. So I think it's just finding sometimes you get good commentators, sometimes you're going to get crap ones. But the big thing for me, and I've said this before, is I don't like the way I have to watch it on like a tablet or a phone unless I have Now TV. So with Now TV, obviously you can watch it on anything and use the Sky Sport, watch Sky Sports through that and click on the game, which is brilliant. So I could watch it on my, let's say, computer or my TV, for example. With the Sky Sports app, if I don't have Now TV, which I have to use, I can't use my computer, even though Sky Sports has a download for it. It opens Sky Go and then goes, nope, you can only watch the game on Sky Sports Plus. I can't watch it on my TV because there is no Sky Sports app. So I have to have an extra device that's realistically, phone screens are 8 or 9 inches. So you're squinting at the game constantly, and it's not a very nice viewing experience. So I think going forward, it needs to be made available on TVs and PCs. They just need to improve the user experience. But if, like I say, if you've got Now TV, I think it works a bit more seamlessly, which is quite poor considering it is a Sky service.
I don't want to say it seems a bit rushed, but like you say, with the quality of commentaries, the few technical gremlins there's been and whatnot, it does feel a bit rushed. But then again, like you have to look at the economics of football, and it's like, well, how much demand is there for a grade A star coverage of Lincoln City versus Chesterfield on a Tuesday night? I mean, if only 2,000 people bother going to the ground, how many of those people are actually going to watch it on a tablet? Do you know what I mean? Like it's I don't know.
It was the fact our commentator was last night was going, it's a raucous atmosphere at the Gotham Group Stadium.
It wasn't. I imagine it wasn't.
The 3 stands are closed. there's just one stand open, and you can't. It was trying to build it up for no reason. Nobody really cares about this competition unless you're in the semi-final, realistically. So people still trying to make it out as bigger than it is.
Yeah. We'll get to the final question moment, but first of all, Sam, your League One Player of the Month. I've got one. I don't want it to be too close to home, but I'll let you put forward the obvious candidates first, and then I'll put my foot forward on this one after you.
So I think some of the obvious picks, you could probably have Adam Phillips of Barnsley. You could have Kyle Wootton with 3 goals, and I think he's got 2 assists as well. You could have Alfie May with 4 goals in 4. But I haven't. I've gone for a very rogue position, and these positions, in my opinion, are never, ever recognised. It's only ever the forward players that get recognised. I've gone for Ibu Toure of Stockport. He's got 1 assist, but he's been part of a defence that's also kept 3 clean sheets in a newly promoted side. He's consistent every time he plays. He's reliable. He's good going forward. He's good defensively. He wins all his duels. So I've gone actually for a rogue pick with Ibu Toure.
Decent shout. It makes me feel bad for this one because I do feel like it's a little bit close to home. But Paudie O'Connor has been he has genuinely been exceptional this year. Like, whenever you need a captain's, like, he is the definition of a captain's performance. Like, every single game, he just puts his body on the line, even to the point where he's getting sent off with about 30 seconds, which is incredibly stupid. But he's just, you can't help it but just admire how much of a great player he is. He's 6th, well, currently joint 6th with about everyone else in the league on 2 goals so far this season. I think he's also got 2 assists as well. So his attacking numbers, rival a lot of others in the division. So I just purely think, okay, like defensively, Lincoln haven't been the best so far this season, only 1 clean sheet. But just in terms of how he infects the rest of that squad, like, obviously, like, in terms of like Lincoln as a whole, you've got Araha, and if you take Araha out, that team just melts. But I also think if you take O'Connor out of it, and we'll see how they do in the next game against Peterborough, we'll see how Lincoln react when you take him out of the club, when you take him out of the squad, because obviously he's now suspended for a game. But I think it's going to be a tough one. I feel like I'm not too biased here, Sam. Can you justify it, or are you going to tell me that I'm stupid?
I'm not going to tell you you're stupid. I can justify it with 2 goals from centre half and a team that's sitting 5th in the league, only losing 1 game. The only reason I wouldn't have chose someone like him is because of that red card, personally. But he's obviously been a pivotal part of why Lincoln were so good last year and a pivotal part of why you started so well this season. So I can see why you picked him. And it's nice that we haven't gone for attackers, because they always get the plaudits, shall we say, and defenders are always forgotten about.
I feel like it was a justifiable red card, though, because it was Piagiani who they were having a tussle with. So, in terms of justifiable actions, yeah, Piagiani, I can allow that. We're going to go for a short break now. After that, we'll talk international breaks and the 3 games so far that have survived the dreaded international call-ups. And welcome back to the League One Lowdown here on the Deck Network with me, Callum, and Sam. Let's get it, I don't want to say out of the way, but I've got my headphones turned down for the incoming rant. Should League One have an international break? Ties in because this was a topic we'd raised up for this podcast. Sam, you have the floor, sir.
Does anyone actually care about this international break? I know players will if you're playing for your country, but as fans, we have just had an international tournament. The club football has got everyone really excited again. Your club is now playing. The Premier League have played 3 games. League One clubs have played 4 games. So let's send all the players away again after they've played one or two Carabao Cup games, a Bristol Street Motors game, and 4 league games. Let's send them away to their countries to play 2 needless Nations League games that nobody actually gives a toss about. They can do 2 things. I personally think we should just have 1 international break through the club season. Do it in, I don't know, February, for example, 2 weeks when a lot of games get called off in the lower leagues. Have a 2-week spell where there is no Premier League, Championship, League One and League Two. For 2 weeks, play your 4 international games, Saturday, Tuesday, and then send them back. Because we've got 1 week off where they play 2 games, and we've got another one next month. It's just, and it ties quite nicely into the question is, should League One have an international break? We've got 3 games on this weekend. Arguably, one of them has surprised me that it survived in Charlton versus Rotherham. That surprised me. But you've got games like, I'll use our game as an example. Leyton Orient is called off against Peterborough because we've got 3 international call-ups, and half of them are to the under-21 sides. It's mainly the under-21 sides that are the issue. So I appreciate the players are going to really want to play for their country because they're representing their country. But personally, as a fan who's just excited that club football has returned, to have that taken away within 3 to 4 weeks of the season starting, it's like, well, that's a bit crap. And like, to be honest, I couldn't care about England versus Ireland. I couldn't care about England versus Finland. They're glorified friendly matches, to be honest. That's how I see them. And then they charge 60 to 70 quid a ticket, so you're not going to go. It just winds me up. I just don't see the point in just have 1 international break through the season, and then that's it. Instead of having 1 now, 1 next month, and then another 1 in March. Just have it in 1 little spell, play all your Nations League games, and that's it. Or just do it every summer. You play all your Nations League games in the summer, and that's that. I just can't get motivated for it.
In terms of it looks a bit stupid only having 3 games on. Do you know what I mean? Like it makes the league look a bit, I don't know, it's so stupid, but it does make it look a bit stupid. I really don't.
It's just pointless.
It's really confusing.
We've played 4 games, and we're going into match day 5 where 6 clubs are going to play 5 games, and the rest of the league is going to have played 4. So half the league now has to play their game on a Tuesday night. So I'll use us for an example. We play Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. Where all our club we could be playing, for example, obviously we're still in the cup, so you could play Saturday. So you're putting a lot of strain through muscles and squad rotation because 3 of your players have gone away. And I don't know if this rule can be, because I looked at the 3 players that have gone. I use us as an example because I know us better. We've lost Ollie O'Neill to under-21s of Ireland. He's a regular starter. We've lost Omar Beckles to Granada. He doesn't start every week, so we've still got 3 centre-backs. And I believe the 3rd one is Josh Keeley, who's just signed from Spurs, Ireland under-21 as well. But we've still got 2 other goalkeepers, so that doesn't matter. Beckles doesn't play, so that doesn't matter. And O'Neill, to be fair, does play. But then Peterborough have lost, I think it's Sam Curtis to Ireland under-21 and 1 other. So arguably, you're at the same strength near enough.
Yeah.
You were. So I don't know if we can up that to 5 potentially. It's no different to that than having sort of an injury crisis.
Yeah.
So it just seems a bit of a cop out, personally.
And clubs sign these players knowing they're in contention for.
Yeah. And now what happens, I believe, is because they've all been moved to Tuesday night, they will go on to Sky Sports Plus.
Yeah, which is obviously more money for them as well.
So that, the clubs will now get a bit more money, and everyone that would go. So I would have gone already in Peterborough because it's a home game and I've got a season ticket. But I live 2 hours away from the ground. So for me to finish work and get there in time and get back, it's like, I'll just go home and watch it now. So the club, and I did notice this with attendances, they have dropped.
Gone down a bit, yeah.
Like our average attendance has gone down by about 1,000 already in 2 games. And we played Bolton and Birmingham.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's all just a bit. It stinks a little bit, but I'm not. I think there should be an international break on the question. I do think there should probably be a an international break when this many games get called off. But I also don't think we should be in the situation where we need to call an international break. But that's just my thoughts. We'll get on to the games now. 3 games. Barnsley against Bristol Rovers, Charlton Athletic against Rotherham United, Wrexham, Shrewsbury. I suppose the pick of the bunch is Charlton, Rotherham, Sam. Rotherham getting their first win of the season last time, I believe, against a Charlton side who have looked decent so far this year in patches, but getting their first defeat of the season last time out. It does look like a really open League One at the moment. Obviously, Rotherham not where they'd want to be, down in 17th. We'll get to Bolton, I suppose, another time. But yeah, what do you make of this one, Sam?
I think we've got 2 teams who are probably in very false positions, to be honest. You've got a Charlton side who are around 21st place for expected goals with 2.7, but 6th in the league with 3 wins and a defeat. And then you've got Rotherham United, who are 2nd in terms of XG, but have only scored 2 goals. So in terms of, I know I base a lot on statistics because I firmly believe that it all balances out over the course of a season. You just need to look at average positions and expected points for that at the end of last season. So the tide is going to turn for Big Steve Evans' team. The thing with Charlton is they obviously started extremely well under Dean Holden last year. They won, I think, their first 3 or 4. They then fell away until January and was sat when we all thought they could go down. I don't think that will happen under a Nathan Jones team, but I can see very similar things with this. And I think the biggest problem for this Charlton side is they're not a very creative team. They're very well organised out of possession, but they don't have that spark going forward. And that's proven with their expected goals and their chances created. But they have, I think they're going to have a heavy reliance on Matty Godden to score them goals. I don't think Ahadme is that man to score you 20 goals. He had a decent spell with Cambridge last year, but he's not shown me anything at Charlton so far to prove that he's going to score goals. So I think Rotherham will beat Charlton.
Okay.
And I think they'll be, I know it's difficult, but I think that confidence boost of, they've got that weight off their shoulders now, Rotherham. Obviously, there was a big expectation on them going into this season. They'd overhauled a lot of players. And I think the win last week, especially the nature of it, in terms of being really late, will boost them. And it just takes a little bit of pressure off their shoulders, and I think they'll win 2-1.
Yeah, interesting shout. I do like the way that Charlton have gone about this season. I know you talk about false dawns and false positions and whatnot, but I know interesting match. I think. I don't think Charlton at home they look all right. I think again it's just one of them that it's so early in the season. It's still quite difficult to kind of get a kind of sense of things at the minute. Charlton last time out losing 2-0 away to Reading, but then in their other games have won at home to Bolton, so a tough test then, but winning, and then also at home to Charlton Athletic. Sorry, not to Charlton Athletic, to Leyton Orient as well. It'll be difficult for them to play themselves. So I'm gonna back Charlton for this one. I'm gonna go 2-0. 2-0. I was debating giving them a goal, but 2-0. I do think that the reason, I don't want to put it entirely on this, but you get cheered up for local derbies, don't you? And I kind of feel like that was, we should have really predicted Rotherham to do quite well against Huddersfield, I think, naively. But
yeah, I think it's worth mentioning. What did you think of the Sorensen penalty? Because obviously Sorensen's a former Lincoln man, so I thought I'd ask the question. I don't know if you've seen the penalty incident.
I've not seen it. I'll be honest, I've not seen it. I'm not clued up on that one. What happened?
I thought it was one of one, half a dozen the other. I thought they were both fouling each other, to be honest, and the referee's obviously seen it. It's a bit like where Sorensen's got his body in the way, Wilkes has kind of like wrapped his leg around, and then everyone's fallen over.
Well, considering he's a massive traitor, Sorensen dived. And I don't like him anymore. I'm joking, Sorensen. Please come back. Let's move on to the next game. Wrexham, Shrewsbury Town. I know we've not really done it, and I don't know how it works when half of the leagues are on an international break. But this is where I'm going to put my EFL fantasy player of the week. I feel like it's kind of like a shoe-in. Arthur Okonkwo,
the Wrexham keeper
for Wrexham. I mean, don't get me wrong, Shrewsbury, congratulations, you won a game.
Yeah, and they scored 3.
And they scored 3, which, even Jesus can walk on water. So, miracles happen. I think if you want a shoe-in clean sheet, go for the goalkeeper for Wrexham. I feel like that'll do you all right. And I'd back Wrexham to do quite all right. They're currently sitting second. Again, whether both them and Stockport can maintain that run, we'd have to wait and see. Obviously, 2 promoted sides, whether they're full of like new energy and whatnot. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, momentum and whatnot. We'll have to wait and see. Don't get me wrong, I'm not doubting them. They've been great so far this season. Whether they can continue that though is a different question. So, your thoughts on this one, Sam?
Yeah, I'm going to also pick a Wrexham player. I've gone for Jack Marriott.
I was debating that one.
Yeah, I think this could be, obviously Shrewsbury did do well last week, but they were very organised out of possession. But we're a very I call it an in front of you team. We will pass the ball around in front of them. Wrexham aren't like that. Wrexham are more predominantly a second ball team, a bit like Shrewsbury are, so they play very similar ways. So the ball is going to be going in behind Shrewsbury a little bit more than the play being in front of them. Jack Marriott, we know what quality Jack Marriott has in front of goal, especially at this level. Shrewsbury they're not how can I put this? They're not an exciting team, but under a manager like Paul Hurst, they're an efficient team. And I do think Paul Hurst is a very decent manager for League One level. Obviously, everyone says I take the piss out of Shrewsbury quite a lot, but I do like Paul Hurst as a manager. And I think if he was there's a lot of managers you could say this about, but if he was backed properly, Shrewsbury, I don't think would be troubled, if that makes sense. They have got some decent players. The Castledine from Chelsea on loan, he looks a very decent forward. He's got some very clever movement and a bit of pace about him. So I wouldn't say it's going to be plain sailing for Wrexham, but I still don't think Shrewsbury will score. So I am going with 2-0 to Wrexham.
Yeah, I think I'll go 3-0. I do back them to get that extra goal. I just think it'd be another one. They're at home. I feel like it's kind of their time to have the spotlight, if that makes sense. They've got no other games and whatnot. So
yeah, I've not actually you don't hear a lot of people talking about Wrexham this year. I suppose because you've got your Birminghams, your Huddersfields. I've not heard media, big media coverage like we had of Wrexham last year. It seems to have gone, unless I'm completely oblivious to it all.
Oh no, I feel the same.
Not seen it.
Weirdly, they've gone weirdly under the radar. I think so. Yeah, I think it'd be a nice one for Wrexham with I'm not going to say the spotlight on them, but there's only 2 other games in the league, so I think it'd be quite nice for them to almost maybe get a headline or 2 about them for a change. And then finally, the only other game in here, and it's not one I'm hugely excited about, considering my love-hate relationship, mainly hate relationship with the away side. Barnsley against Bristol Rovers. Barnsley at the minute just outside the playoff zones with a loss, a win, a draw, and a win on 7 points. And then their opponents, Bristol Rovers, just 2 spots behind them on the same amount of points with a win, a draw, a loss, and a win. So both sides coming into it with pretty much the same record, albeit in a different order, with wins last time out. What do you make of Bristol Rovers? Because I just find them a bit of a nothing team, right?
They're kind of, yeah.
They're there. They're League One staples. You're always going to have to plan a trip to Bristol at least once a season if, say Bristol City get relegated, which I don't really follow the Championship as much. But you always know you're going to have to plan a trip to Bristol Rovers each year if you're in League One. You go, you play a game of football, and it's a nice week. It's a nice weekend down south. That's about it for Bristol Rovers. No offense to them, but they're there.
Yeah.
Am I not doing them justice, or am I summing it up quite well?
I do agree they're kind of just there. They were another team along with Stockport. These were the two teams I picked out that could have decent seasons. I really, really rate Matt Taylor as a manager. I think he's one of the best in League One. He seems to have got his philosophy over a bit more this season. Of Promise on the chair, finally getting his first 2 goals. One of them a really, really nice turn last time out. Camille Conte is one of the most energetic midfielders in the league. Josh Griffiths, you obviously know a lot about him from his Lincoln days. Very solid League One goalkeeper. They're just a very well organised team that don't do anything out of the ordinary, shall we say. They've obviously kept 3 clean sheets in their 4 games. They've only scored 3 goals and conceded twice. And if you're going to go for playoffs and try and sneak that 6th place, because I think we believe there's probably only 1 or 2 spots up for grabs in the playoffs this year. To get it, you've got to be, I call it a very efficient team. You can't 1 week score 5 and then next week lose 3-0. You've got to be consistent. And I think a Bristol Rovers side will be consistent with a Matt Taylor. They've got a good blend of experience and youth in the side. They obviously had quite a big overhaul this summer as well, which probably helped Matt Taylor, especially bring the average age of that side down. Chris Martin could potentially be a loss. He's out for a little while with injury. His experience as a plan B of a striker. Barnsley, on the other hand, they've had a pretty decent start under Darrell Clark. I didn't expect much of them this season. The signing of Keylor Dunn particularly excites me because he's going to be in more of a possession-based League One side now. You obviously still got Adam Phillips. You've still got Matt Craig. You've still got Luke O'Connell. So they still have some very, very good League One players. My big concern with Barnsley is their squad depth. They've probably got, I think, 16 players, where I think some other clubs in the league have 20. But Barnsley being at home is probably more an advantage, but I can't see Bristol Rovers being opened up. Obviously, Barnsley won 3-0 last time out against Crawley, and rather impressively, I must add, because Crawley have started the season relatively well. I am going to go with a 1-1 draw for this one.
I'm about the home side, 2-1 Barnsley, I think. I was probably partly fueled by how much I don't like Bristol. But quickly before we wrap this up, I was speaking to a Mansfield fan the other day, and they didn't seem too fussed by the loss of Keylor Dunn. Maybe that was them licking their wounds and whatnot. But it sounds like, you know, he's not wanted to play for them at the start of this season. And it gives, we see this a lot of the time, sometimes when a club loses its main player, that it gives them a chance to rebuild the squad or rebuild a playing style that's not centered around the skills of one player. I just thought your thoughts on that before we wrap up.
It's rather interesting, that, because obviously he was their standout, and if not the standout player in League Two last season. But he's never proven himself at League One. Yes, he's played for weaker teams in League One. I completely understand that when he was at Burton and Oldham. But he's never been someone that, because I don't think his off-the-ball work is that extraordinary, which is probably why the Mansfield fans aren't, I don't think, too distraught, because they're not going to have as much of the ball this year. So you're relying on one bit of magic, where Keylor Dunn, I think, is that kind of player that needs to be involved in a game to provide the magic, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good signing for Barnsley, but they did sign, I think it's Ben Waine on loan from Plymouth, who has experience at League One level, scored twice in the Championship last year. So they have replaced him. Obviously, League regularly brings lots of experience and goals to the side. So I think Nigel Clough's recruitment has been pretty shrewd anyway. But I don't think that loss can be underestimated, because he is a top player.
Interesting indeed. Well, that is all for the preview show on the League One Lowdown on the Deck Network. So it's goodbye from Sam. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me.